My girlfriend called me mediocre because I work from home. So I showed her my bank account and paid her off. Hi, Freddie. I never thought I'd write here, but I feel like I need to share my story and maybe get some outside opinions. My name is Freddie. I'm 28 years old and have been in a relationship with Ruby, a 26-year-old woman, for 8 months. Until recently, everything in our relationship had been pretty good. We got along well, had chemistry, supported each other, and overall it was a healthy and stable relationship. I work as a web programmer from home. Since I finished college, I focused on improving my skills and getting clients independently. After a few years of effort, I managed to establish a good client base and now have a pretty comfortable income. I'm not a millionaire, but I live without any worries. I work in what I like and enjoy great freedom. I don't have to worry about toxic bosses or rigid schedules. Basically, I organize my time how I want. Sometimes I work during the day, other times at night, and when I need a break, I take it without problems. Since the beginning of our relationship, Ruby always knew what I did and never seemed to have a problem with it. In fact, she used to say that she liked the fact that I had so much flexibility because it meant I could spend more time with her. Sometimes I would work from her apartment while she did her own thing, and other times we would go on trips without my work being affected. It was a pretty good dynamic. Ruby works in an office. She doesn't get paid badly, but her job is quite demanding. She always has to keep to strict hours and often takes work home with her getting very stressed. I've always tried to support her when she's had difficult weeks. It's never bothered me that she has a traditional job, or have I said anything negative to her about it. Everyone has their own way and what works for them. That all changed a few weeks ago. I don't know exactly when it started, but little by little I noticed that Ruby started making weird comments about my work. At first they were subtle things like how lucky I was that I didn't have to get up early, or how envious she was that I got to work in my pajamas. I didn't think anything of it because I thought she was just joking or venting after a hard day at the office. But then her comments became more frequent and more negative. One day, she said something like it must be nice not to have to deal with a boss who demands results every day. Another day, she asked me if I really felt fulfilled working from home and not in a real office. That confused me because, as I said before, she had never had any problems with my work. She had always supported what I did and had never shown any signs of annoyance or doubt. After a while, her comments became more constant and she started making comparisons with other couples we knew. She would tell me about her friends, boyfriends who had serious jobs in big companies, who wore suits every day and had important meetings. She would tell me that her friend Mariana was with an engineer who traveled constantly on business, and that her friend Sophia was dating a lawyer who worked at a prestigious firm. I felt that somehow she was insinuating that my job wasn't serious or that I wasn't as successful as those people. I didn't understand what was going on or why her perspective on my work had changed out of nowhere. But then I understood everything when she told me about a new friend she had made at her office, who I will call Laura. She is the type of person who always has something to say about other people's lives. Ruby told me that Laura was someone who gets into everything, gives opinions without being asked, and has a pretty closed mind about how things should be. It was she who started filling Ruby's head with these ideas about what it means to have a good job and what a successful man should do with his life. At first, Ruby only mentioned Laura in casual conversations, but then she started repeating many of the things she said. Phrases like real men work in offices or a good man should have a stable career in a big company. According to Ruby, Laura had told her that men who work from home only do so because they can't get a real job, and that in the long run, that is a sign of instability. She also told her that a man who doesn't have to leave the house to work could never be a good provider, and that if Ruby wanted a secure future, she should look for someone more ambitious. When Ruby told me this, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that she was actually taking the words of someone who didn't even know me seriously. I tried to explain to her that my job wasn't unstable or makeshift, that it had taken me years to get to where I am, and that I actually earned more money than most of the types she was talking about. But it seemed like she already had the idea in her head. Since then, things have been tense between us. I feel like Ruby is seeing our relationship with different eyes and now sees me as someone less just because I work from home. It hurts because she was never like that. Before, she was always supportive and showed pride in what I did. And now it seems like all of that has vanished because of the words of a third person. She still hasn't gotten to the point of saying something really hurtful to me, but every time we talk about the subject, I notice that there is some contempt in her tone. She no longer laughs when I joke about working in pajamas. She no longer says that she likes that I have free time and instead she now focuses on the cons of my job. I'm trying to be patient because I love her and because I think she's just confused, but honestly, I don't know how much longer I'm going to put up with this. I wanted to share this here because I know that there are other programmers or freelancers on Reddit who have gone through something similar. It's possible that Ruby is just influenced by her friend and that she will eventually realize how ridiculous this is. Any advice is welcome. Update a few days ago, I posted about my situation with Ruby and how her attitude towards my work had changed after being influenced by a friend. I wanted to give you all an update because a few things have happened since then. First of all, I want to thank everyone who commented on my first post. I received so many comments, some telling me to leave her immediately because it wasn't worth it to continue with someone who looked down on my work, and others suggesting that I give her time, that maybe it was just a phase and that in time she would realize that I was wrong. There was something that I noticed in a lot of the comments, and it made me reflect people's obsession with the traditional 99 job. I understand that some people find it secure to see their partner leave the house early and come back after a long day of work. But that doesn't mean that those of us who work from home are lazy or have any less value. This made me think that maybe Ruby just had that mentality, and if we talked about it properly, she could understand my point of view. So I decided to talk to her. I didn't want to do it in a confrontational tone, but more like a calm conversation where I could explain to her what my work is and why I decided to become a web programmer remotely instead of working in an office. We sat down to talk one afternoon after going out to dinner. I calmly explained to her that my job is not a hobby, it is my source of income, and that it allows me to live well without having to leave home. I also told her that my job is no less valid than someone who wakes up at 6 in the morning to go to an office. The important thing is that I have financial stability and can indulge myself whenever I want. I didn't want to brag, but I did mention that I earn quite well and that working from home allows me to organize my time efficiently. To my surprise, she seemed to understand. She told me she hadn't thought about that and that perhaps she had been unfair to me. She seemed genuine in her regret, and for a few days, everything was fine. She was affectionate and avoided making negative comments about my work. I thought the problem was resolved and that it had all been just a passing phase. But as probably many of you imagined, the peace didn't last long. After a few days, Ruby started making comments about my work again, but this time there were more subtle hints. For example, one time we were at a meeting with her friends, and someone asked what I did. When I answered that I worked as a programmer from home, Ruby made a comment in a mocking tone. Yes, from her bed, in her pajamas, all day. She said it with a nervous laugh, but I noticed that she really thought it. It made me quite uncomfortable, but I decided not to give it importance at that moment. After that, the comments became more constant. One day, while we were shopping at the supermarket, we passed by the formal suits section, and she said, "Look, wouldn't you like to wear one of these to go to work like a normal person?" I laughed to hide it, but it bothered me a lot. And when we were in the car, she told me something that made me think I feel that working from home is not a real job. You don't put in as much effort as someone who has to go out every day on the street. That comment did make me react. I asked her what a real job was to her. She answered saying that someone who works in an office, in a store, in a hospital, or in construction is different from being at home with a computer all day. It wasn't the same thing. She tried to soften it by saying that she respected me and that it wasn't her intention to look down on me, but she just didn't see my job as something stable in the long term. There I understood that the problem wasn't just the influence of her friend Ruby. She really believed that my job wasn't enough. The worst thing was that she didn't seem to care how much I earned or how stable it was, but rather the appearance of what a real job is. The situation got to a point where they were no longer just isolated comments. It became a recurring topic in every conversation. Somehow she brought up the fact that I didn't have to try as hard as her or like other people who worked outside the home. She even told me that she envied me because I didn't do anything while she and others had to deal with bosses and schedules. I got to a point where I started to wonder if it was really worth going with someone who thought that way about my job. It wasn't fair that the person I was sharing my life with belittled what I do just because it doesn't fit their idea of a traditional job. I know that many people believe that these types of problems can be solved with communication, but we had already talked about the subject, and it seemed like it wasn't going to change. I feel that Ruby had a very deep-rooted idea of what it means to work, and she wasn't willing to see things from my perspective. So here I am, Reddit. What would you guys do in my place? It pains me to think of ending the relationship because other than this, Ruby is an amazing person, but I couldn't ignore the fact that deep down she doesn't respect my work or what I do. Is this something that can change over time, or Or should I just accept that we simply have very different views on life and work? Update has been a few weeks since my last update, and honestly, I'm still processing everything that happened. But like many of you guys have been asking for an update, here it is. We broke up. Although it pains me to say it, there's no going back. For those who haven't read my previous posts, my now ex-girlfriend Ruby started making respectful comments about me working from home. At first I thought they were harmless jokes, but over time, they became more and more hurtful. I tried talking to her, explaining how well I was doing in my career as a web programmer, but it was all in vain. Her friends had convinced her that only traditional office jobs were worth it and that I, by working from home, had a mediocre job with no ambitions. During the days after our last serious conversation, things seemed to have improved. She stopped making comments, and for a moment I thought that everything was fixed, but it was just an illusion. The straw that broke the camel's back was a few days ago, when we had gone out to dinner with some of her friends. I noticed that every time they talked about their jobs, she avoided mentioning mine. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but when someone asked me what I do, she intervened before I could answer and said with a forced laugh, "He works from home, does computer stuff for hours. Nothing important." Everyone laughed, and I stayed in shock. I didn't want to make a scene in public, so I held on until we got to my apartment. As soon as I closed the door, I asked her what all that was about, why she kept belittling my job, why she seemed ashamed of me. She sighed, and with a coldness I had never seen before, looked at me fixedly and said, "I'm sorry, but I couldn't help thinking that I'm with a mediocre boyfriend." At that moment, something inside me broke. For months, I tried to explain to her, make her understand, justify myself, even when I had no reason to. Still, she kept looking down on me. But what hurt me the most wasn't the word mediocre, but the conviction with which she said it, as if she truly believed it. As if I, the person who had been by her side, supporting her through everything, was worthless. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I took out my cell phone, opened my bank app, and showed it to her. I don't usually talk about my savings. I've always been very secretive with my money. But at that moment, I felt like I had no other choice. Can a mediocre person make this much money? I asked her with a firm voice. "This money is more than you and your friends will make in 20 years of working in suits." She looked at the screen, and her face changed completely. She froze, as if she had just been given a bucket of cold water. At that moment, I understood her whole problem. It was never really my job. It was the perception she had of it. Now that she saw how much money I had, her attitude changed out of nowhere. "Freddie, I'm sorry," she stuttered. "I didn't know. I didn't mean that. It was a mistake." I shook my head. "Now if you love me." "No. Now that you saw my money, yes, I am worth it." She started crying, tried to hug me, but I pulled away. I didn't care that she was crying. Not this time. She had treated me like garbage for weeks, and now that she knew I had money, she suddenly regretted it. "Freddie, please don't leave me. I didn't mean to say it. It was stupid. I don't know what I was thinking." I took a deep breath and looked at her one last time. "You're right about one thing, Ruby. I'm not mediocre, but you are. Not because of what you earn or how you live, but because of your mentality. Now go," I said. She begged some more, but it didn't move me. I opened the door and asked her to leave. There was no point in arguing anymore. Finally, after a few minutes, she grabbed her bag and walked out without another word. Since then, I haven't heard from her. I blocked her number and deleted her social media. I know she'll try to contact me somehow, but I'm just not interested in what she has to say anymore. I'm not going to lie. It hurts. I loved Ruby, but respect is something that is never negotiable. And she broke that to everyone who's been following my story. Thanks for your advice. Some told me to leave her. Others told me to talk to her. In the end, I did what I had to do. And even though it hurts, I know it's the best for me. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that money doesn't change people. It only reveals what they always were. And Ruby showed me who she really was. It's been a few weeks since I broke up with Ruby, and as expected, she's been looking for me. At first it was text messages, some asking for forgiveness, others full of nostalgia for what we had. She told me that she had made a mistake, that she didn't know how to value what she had, and that now she understood how wrong she had been to belittle my work just because it didn't fit the traditional mold. I didn't answer her. Then the call started, sometimes crying, sometimes with a soft voice, try to sound calm. "Freddie, I just want to talk. Please give me a chance to explain myself better." But I had already heard everything. I had already seen the way she looked at me when she realized that my job, what she called mediocre, had given me a stability that many of the friends she compared herself to would never achieve. It wasn't regret for her words. It was regret because she discovered that I wasn't the mediocre one. She thought what hurt me the most wasn't the word itself, but the meaning behind it. Ruby didn't see me as a man valuable for my work ethic, for my abilities, for how I treated her. She only valued me when she saw a number on my phone screen. How could I be with someone like that? I didn't answer her calls, and she started showing up at my building. The first time I saw her, I went down to tell her to leave, that there was no turning back. She begged me, took my hand, tried to kiss me, but I pushed her away. "No, Ruby, this is over." She told me to listen to her, that now I understood that money isn't everything and that I just wanted a second chance. No, Ruby. Now, if you notice because you saw my bank account, not because you really love me. She stayed quiet, but her eyes said it all. I knew I was right. I want to leave a message for all those who work in something that others consider unconventional. Just because others look down on you doesn't mean you are less. Being a freelance programmer, content creator, investor, or entrepreneur does not mean that you are less important. The important thing is that you are good at what you do and that you are happy. Stability does not always come from a steady paycheck, but from the intelligence with which you manage your income in your life. If someone does not respect your path just because they do not understand it, that person does not deserve to be in your life. You do not need the validation of others to know that what you do has value. And most importantly, never allow someone who does not see your effort and your achievements to make you feel less like. In my case, some people only value you when they see numbers, but you are worth much more than that. Let this serve as a lesson to all.